July 21st, 1798. Under the suffocating heat of the Egyptian summer, a sight unfolded that seemed to bridge two entirely different eras of human history. On the dusty plains of Embabeh, just across the Nile River from Cairo, the legendary Mamluk cavalry, a warrior caste that had ruled Egypt with an iron fist for centuries, drew their jewel-encrusted scimitars. They stood ready to defend their land against a terrifyingly modern invader. Watching them from across the parched sands was a brilliant 28-year-old French general named Napoleon Bonaparte. Behind him stood over 20,000 battle-hardened soldiers of the French Republic. Pointing toward the massive, timeless monuments looming on the distant horizon, Napoleon famously galvanized his men with words that would echo through the centuries. "Soldiers, from the tops of these pyramids, 40 centuries of history look down upon you." This was the Battle of the Pyramids. It was a monumental clash where the peak of European Enlightenment-era military science directly collided with the fierce medieval chivalric traditions of the East. On this day, the ancient sands of Egypt would bear witness to a tactical masterpiece that would decide the fate of an empire.
To defeat an army renowned for having the finest, most fearless cavalry in the world, Napoleon knew he could not rely on standard European battle lines. The Mamluks were superb horsemen, fiercely brave, and lethal in single combat. If they managed to break through the French lines, they would butcher his infantry in a matter of minutes. Napoleon's answer to this threat was a masterclass in defensive adaptation, the division square. Instead of drawing his men out in a long, vulnerable line, Napoleon organized his 5 divisions into massive, hollow rectangles. The outer walls of these squares were formed by 6 ranks of infantrymen. The front ranks knelt with their bayonets pointed outward, creating an impenetrable wall of steel, while the ranks behind them kept their muskets loaded and ready. Safe inside the hollow center of these human fortresses were the baggage trains, the scientists, and the highly lethal French artillery. When Murad Bey, the fierce Mamluk commander, ordered a full-scale, thundering charge, the desert shook beneath the hooves of thousands of horses. The Mamluk elite rode forward with unparalleled courage, screaming battle cries. But as they slammed into the French positions, Napoleon's trap snapped shut. The French squares held perfectly firm. The Mamluk horsemen found themselves trapped between massive blocks of disciplined fire. As they circled the squares looking for a weak point, they were systematically cut down by rhythmic, devastating volleys of musket fire and point-blank grape shot from the artillery. Chivalric bravery was utterly powerless against industrialized mathematical discipline. Within hours, the Mamluk army was shattered, fleeing in chaos toward the Nile.
The stunning victory at the Battle of the Pyramids allowed Napoleon to march into Cairo completely unopposed, cementing French dominance over Egypt. But what drove the French Directory to send their most brilliant young general across the Mediterranean in the first place? The answer lay not just in a desire for conquest, but in a grand geopolitical strategy to cripple France's ultimate rival, Great Britain. In 1798, Britain's global power was heavily fueled by its wealthy colonies in India. Napoleon realized that by conquering Egypt, France could establish a permanent strategic outpost in the Middle East. From this base, they could effectively cut off Britain's overland and Red Sea trade routes to the Indian subcontinent, dealing a severe economic blow to the British Empire. Furthermore, the invasion ignited an intense cultural fascination back across Europe. Napoleon did not just bring soldiers to Egypt, he brought an army of over 160 civilian experts, including engineers, surveyors, astronomers, and artists, collectively known as the savants. This campaign was envisioned as a dual conquest, a military subjugation of a strategic territory, and an intellectual colonization of a land whose ancient secrets had been lost to Western memory for over a millennium. While Napoleon's military grip on Egypt would ultimately prove short-lived, doomed by the destruction of his fleet by British Admiral Horatio Nelson at the Battle of the Nile, the scientific and cultural impact of the expedition was permanent. It completely reshaped the Western world's understanding of antiquity, effectively birthing the modern science of Egyptology. The savants meticulously mapped the country, recorded the architecture of ancient temples, and documented the flora, fauna, and local customs. Their monumental multi-volume publication, the Description de l'Égypte, sparked a massive wave of Egyptomania across Europe, heavily influencing everything from furniture design to literature. It was during this campaign, near the port city of Rashid, that a French soldier uncovered a dark granodiorite slab inscribed with 3 different scripts: Ancient Greek,
Demotic, and Egyptian hieroglyphs. This artifact, the Rosetta Stone, would eventually provide the key for Jean-François Champollion to crack the code of hieroglyphs, unlocking thousands of years of Egyptian history. However, this intellectual legacy carries a complex, controversial weight. The expedition marked the dawn of modern Orientalism, a Western approach to studying the East that often viewed it through a lens of colonial superiority. The treasures and history of Egypt were systematically collected, categorized, and shipped off to European museums, establishing a precedent of colonial cultural appropriation that global historians continue to critically debate today.
The Battle of the Pyramids was a defining catalyst for Napoleon Bonaparte's meteoric rise to absolute power. It demonstrated his uncanny ability to adapt tactically to unfamiliar enemies, while seamlessly using cultural and scientific discovery to romanticize and legitimize a brutal campaign of military expansion. Looking back at this pivotal moment in global history, how do you assess the dual impact of Napoleon's invasion? Was it a destructive act of colonial aggression or a necessary turning point that unlocked the ancient world for modern historical study? Can a military conquest ever be truly justified by the scientific discoveries it leaves behind? We want to hear your thoughts, so please leave a comment with your perspectives down below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the intersection of warfare, tactics, and discovery, please give this video a thumbs up, share it with your fellow history buffs, and hit that subscribe button to join our community for more journeys into the past. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next episode.